Hi, kids. Okay, so how do you follow up a film like Doctor Strangelove? Stanley Kubrick. You make 2001: A Space Odyssey, right? How do you follow up one of the greatest films of all time? Make a better film. Depends. Maybe you like one more than the other. But Kubrick, much like Doctor Strangelove, came out of his desire to do something that dealt with a nuclear nightmare type situation. 2001 because he wanted to do a science fiction film. He wanted to do a really good science fiction film. So Kubrick, growing up, had read sci-fi, but science fiction had always kind of been pulpy B movies for the most part. The science aspect of it not always taken seriously. Kubrick wanted to do something that took the science seriously. He didn't want to do a space opera. He's not George Lucas. So he does what he always does. He does research. He reads a bunch of different authors, and he decides to reach out to Arthur C. Clarke, who's a science fiction writer, a bit of a scientist, an inventor, a writer on science, not just science fiction. So he reaches out to Arthur C. Clarke and says, "Hey, I'm interested in doing something. Do you want to work with me on something? We can collaborate." So they meet. They decide, yes, this is what we'll do. So this is a rare instance because normally, what Kubrick takes a book, he offers the author a chance to write the screenplay, and then he comes in and he rewrites it. Right? That's pretty much what he's done every single film, for the most part, that he's chosen up until now. 2001, instead, he conceives of the idea for the novel with Clarke. The novel's not written yet. And then Arthur C. Clarke writes the novel with the purpose of then Kubrick taking that and adapting it into a film. So it was written with the film version in mind, in collaboration with Kubrick. So it's about April 1964. April 1964, when they get together and they decide this is what we're going to do. Clarke submits his first rough draft of the novel to Kubrick for Christmas of 64. Okay? And then Kubrick uses that draft, submits it to MGM, and gets funding from them to develop it into a film. Budget is set at about $6 million with the planned release date of December 1966. All right? December of 66. So pre-production starts in the spring of 65. Pre-production involves building the sets, the costumes, casting, all of that type of thing. So December 29th, 1965 is when they finally start shooting. So now they have a year to film it, to do the post production, to edit it, get it into theaters. Which not a bad timetable, but you're working with Kubrick. So about May of 1965, executives at MGM are getting a little bit worried, right? Because we're almost halfway through the year. They don't know what's going on. So Arthur C. Clarke pays them a visit, says, "Don't worry. Don't worry. It's going good. You'll get your investment. Just don't worry about it. We're good, guys." He also, around this time, asked Kubrick if, since the novel is done, if he can release the novel. Since we're not quite sure we're going to make that December release date for the film. Kubrick says no, basically because he wants the film to come out first. He doesn't want anyone to know the contents of the film, obviously. You can read the book and know, which is a rare opportunity he never gets because it's always based on a book. The other thing that Kubrick does around this time is he takes out an insurance policy on the film in the event that we make contact with extraterrestrials. Because if we actually make contact with extraterrestrials. Before his film about making contact with extraterrestrials comes out, he'll ruin his film, right? Nobody's going to go see the fictional account, possibly very wrong account of what actually happened. So he takes out an insurance policy on that. That's the kind of guy Kubrick is. So about December 66, when it's supposed to be released, we are still filming the special effects mostly because Kubrick is meticulous. He wants to do everything right. He wants to make sure it's perfect down to the tiniest detail. So he doesn't start editing until March of 1968. And that original $6 million budget, the rare instance for a Kubrick film, because normally, right, Dr. Strangelove was about a 1 point something million dollar budget, 1.2. Lolita was about 1.1. He was given 6.5 for this with all the special effects. He spent about $6 million alone on the special effects. Budget ends up being $10.5 million, which, if you're an MGM executive, is a little worrying because got a sci-fi film. Star Wars is not for quite some time. There's no real proof that this will make your investment back, especially when Kubrick's last two films, Dr. Strangelove and Lolita, made about $9 million at the box office. I think Spartacus was his film with the highest gross at the box office. I think that was somewhere in the $12 million range. I could be wrong. So, a little worried, right? So, it gets released. Not to worry. Kubrick's highest grossing film to this date at the box office. It makes $146 million. You put in 10, you get 146. You'll do that every time, right? Also nominated for 4 Academy Awards. Kubrick's nominated for Best Director. The film is not nominated for Best Picture. Kubrick does win an Academy Award. Of the 4 films nominated for, Kubrick wins for special effects. So that is Stanley Kubrick's only Academy Award. He won for special effects. Carol Reed won Best Director, and for the picture that won Best Picture, Oliver won Best Picture at that, I think, 41st Academy Awards ceremony. Of course, Kubrick gets the last laugh, gets all that money, and it's regarded as one of the greatest films of all time. So I did my greatest films of all time series. Dr. Strangelove ended up at number 28 based on where it is on other lists: AFI, BFI, UFI, IMDb. This one came in at number 3. So it's in the conversation as top 5 greatest film of all time. Okay, that's it for this. Thank you for watching. Like, subscribe,